Palisade Radio is brought to you by First Majestic Silver Corp., one of the world's purest and fastest growing silver mining companies.
Welcome back to another episode of Palisade Radio. This is your host, Colin Cattell. On the line with us today is a new guest to the program. His name is Matt Zabloski. He's the portfolio manager of DellBrook Capital, which is a Vancouver-based mining-focused group with about $100 million under management. Matt, welcome to the program.
Thanks very much for having me.
Yeah, you know, every group at this point in the market, it's all contrarian money that's really deploying and has been deploying the last year, but each and every group has a different way of deploying their capital and different things that they're looking for. Before we got on the call today, we were going over what DellBrook's mandate is, and you had a strong focus towards looking at asset-level transactions and what the asset is that a company is holding, the discrepancy between what your analysts believe that is worth and what the market's valuing it at. Can you talk a little bit about what you're looking for as a portfolio manager of DellBrook?
Sure, absolutely. I'd start by saying that our fundamental approach is bottoms-up, asset-based investing. We have a strong technical team in-house that has a great level of experience in project evaluation, asset evaluation. And for us, the key is very much to understand the asset, to understand and identify assets where we can identify a gap between market value and intrinsic value. The larger the gap, the more excited we get. But more than that, once we identify the gap, it's sitting down with the team, engaging management, and creating or identifying the catalyst in our mind that will drive that gap to narrow between, the purchase price that we involve ourselves in on a security and the intrinsic value.
Great. Matt, are there any commodities that you have particular focus on right now, and are there any that you would exclude from potential interest for DellBrook?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're right now, like a lot of people, we're curious to explore more within the precious metals complex. Just going through the market right now, there's approximately $8 trillion of sovereign debt that has a negative yield associated with it. So we see a good push in the precious metals space. But within that space, I think you really need to focus on quality over quantity, and that's our mantra internally here is, the quality of transactions versus the quantity of transactions. Where we tend to shy away from are overly promotional stories. We're not right now completely committed to the base metal space. So we have very limited involvement in the base metal space. Some of the energy metals, the lithiums, the uraniums of the world, we just don't think there's a lot of substance there to drive the equities up any further. And in some cases, we're positioning ourselves to take advantage of the reality. When the market realizes that a lot of these investments have overshot what they truly are worth.
I'm sure for somebody close to the market like yourself, you've noticed a pickup. The share prices of a lot of the gold-related equities have moved up, and even financings going into these equities are closing quite a bit more quickly. We just put an interview out with John Hathaway from Tocqueville Funds, and he had mentioned that while it might seem to somebody like us that interest has come back into the space, a lot of barometers are showing that really no interest has come back into the space, and the general public are not taking notice of this yet, and they won't for quite some time. Would you agree with that, and could you expand on it?
Sure, I would 100% agree with that. I mean, we're very, Tocqueville ourselves, other resource-focused investment funds are obviously very, very knowledgeable and touch base with the market for metals and mining on a daily basis. I would say at this moment, if I had to guesstimate, we're probably, maybe midway through the first inning in terms of the potential interest. The barometers we look at, our sector exposure for some of the large asset management firms, the East Coast mutual funds, West Coast mutual funds in the U.S., we would hazard a guess and estimate that the sector for metals and mining in general is not represented at all in these larger portfolios. The interesting scenario that you can look at now is because this bear market has gone on for so long, the market cap compression of the space in general has been so severe. Just a small amount of capital coming in on the institutional side from the generalist mutual funds, let alone the pension funds. A small amount of capital will drive significant returns to the market caps of a lot of these companies. So I would completely agree with that. Like I said, internally here, we sort of we sort of say that we're just midway through the first, and there's a long way to go still.
Many people believe that gold prices are just starting to move up and will probably go to $2,000 an ounce or maybe far exceed that, which brings up the question of optionality in your investing. Some assets are economical at prices of $1,200 or $1,300 gold. Others take $1,500 or $1,800 gold, and the leverage that is afforded by investing in those out-of-the-money assets, of course, can be huge if you time it right. Is DellBrook Capital interested in optionality plays, or are you more focused on the type of quality assets that can produce in this environment?
Yeah, I'd say it's a bit of both. I mean, for us, it's understanding some of those marginal assets as you define them. Actually, if we run them internally here through our technical team, some of them are not as marginal as the market believes. So assets that previously, years ago had, economics done on them at a certain commodity price, strip price, at the current foreign exchange level. Understanding how to rejig those projects, rejig the economics, being able to identify projects that the market thinks are marginal or even uneconomic at this point. I think our real strength is to find those projects, run them through the internal review process that we have here with our engineering and geological team, and uncover some gems that, in fact, if we apply, current world economics, these are very robust projects. Those are the ones that get me excited. We do look at some of these other projects that are well out of the money as call options, I suppose, but we don't typically park our capital there simply because our belief is that gold prices will probably move higher, but the pace under which they do move higher is unknown to the entire market. So it very much for us is an opportunity cost of capital. I'd much rather understand the fundamentals, rework the fundamentals, and find these hidden gems than park my money in a truly marginal asset and just hope that factors beyond my control take effect and rise and push the value of that asset up.
The mining industry is and always has been fraught with shady characters. The cycles allow for huge amounts of money to be made very quickly, and that seems to invite a lot of people rushing into the space, a lot of excitement where people throw money into hands that maybe it shouldn't go into. Before the call, you were talking about the idea of shareholder activism and the idea of shareholders taking a little bit more control or say in what's being done with their money and the guidance of a particular company, something that doesn't seem to happen very much in mining. What can you tell us about DellBrook and your interest in getting involved in a more active role?
Yeah, I would say our policy internally here is very much focused on the value of the proxy that we have. It's our belief that activism or engagement from shareholders is something that has not occurred to the degree necessary within the mining space, especially within the intermediate to junior mining space. It's typically a situation where it's very retail focused, and that's not us. We're into most of our investments. We probably have at least a dozen, if not 18, where we're reporting shareholders, but as a general policy, we engage management very actively, engage the board of directors very actively. It's not outside the realm of possibility for us to be involved in something where we look at making changes if after the discussions with the board and management things aren't going in the direction that we believe that they should. So, as in my previous comment, we said that, the sector in general on a recovery is in its first inning. The activism side hasn't even really popped up yet. And for us, it's something that we're very cognizant of, and we're not at all in the least bit afraid of engaging management or board of directors. We've come through a couple of them. We're looking at a couple right now. I think there's a few opportunities out there that are primed for exactly that. And quite frankly, if we deem that to be the best way to create value, then I'm more than happy to make the investment and to make the move to surface such value.
We put out a piece earlier this week on Palisade Research called Why 11 of the Largest Gold Funds and Majors Are All Invested in This Junior Gold Company. And we were, of course, talking about Rob McLeod and IDM Mining. The stock today is up almost 20% with major inflows of capital coming in. And one of those funds that we were referring to, of course, was DellBrook. DellBrook's been a supporter of the story for quite some time. It's a company that we're invested in as well, and I thought I would bring it up so that you could maybe walk our listeners through why this is an ideal candidate for DellBrook to get involved and why you see upside in the story from here.
Sure. I mean, we typically hold our cards pretty close to our chest in terms of discussing investment thesis, but this is one that is near and dear to the heart, I suppose. IDM's a story that we've been involved in for a couple of years now. It is potentially one of, well, in our view, the next producing gold mine in British Columbia. Has significant exploration upside to it. But also the bigger catalysts are that within literally 12 months, this site should receive a permit for development. So, we sit back and we always view our portfolio investments in the context of the broad market. This one checks a lot of the boxes in a politically safe jurisdiction, not an unmanageable amount of capex to get off the ground, a very good management team, both on the development side, but also on the exploration side. We're currently shareholders, approximately, I believe, 14 or 15% of the outstanding equity, and we'll continue to support this. We truly see this stock as it stands now as undervalued, even with the recent move in the shares. Our target price on this is materially higher than what the stock is right now.
And one thing that could be of concern to some investors, some companies are going out and doing major dilution events right now. IDM, of course, just undertook a pretty substantial dilution. But also, if people have been paying attention to these things, they've noticed that as soon as that money comes in the door, a lot of these stocks are really moving up. I can think of Pilot Gold, Sand Spring Resources, Midas Gold, all companies that nearly doubled, and we can add IDM to that as soon as they took in the dilution. What is your view on diluting existing shareholders? You were, of course, a large shareholder of IDM before this most recent transaction.
Yeah, we were approximately 19%. We're maintaining our 15% ownership. So for us, the company required capital to get it to a production decision. Unfortunately, you're doing so now at share prices that are much lower than where they should be. Thus the deal closes, these things double or triple. In our mind, I'm not looking at the absolute share price. I'm looking at our percentage of the equity value. Our internal NAVs obviously came down with such a dilutive financing, but in our mind, it was a necessary evil on the stock. Like I said, if the economics are such that the target, even prior to the company receiving its permitting, its permits for construction, or making an investment decision, the targets are multiples of where the stock is now. So what I'd say is, unfortunately, the nature of the beast with the market where it was is a lot of the companies overshot, where in reality they should have been given the price of gold and the the foreign exchange situation. But that's the nature of the beast, and luckily, for us, we simply maintain our pro rata ownership of this, and that is the way that we are playing this. And some of the other stocks, we're just maintaining the equity ownership percentage, and we're happy to support the projects that we see as moving forward and continue to see as undervalued, regardless of the recent performance.
Fantastic. Well, Matt, thank you so much for coming on the program with us today and sharing your thoughts and ideas on the market as it develops into a nice, strong bull market, something we've been waiting for quite some time. If you have anything else to add for audience members or ways to find out more information or get involved with yourself or DellBrook, please go ahead and let us know.
Perfect. No, I very much appreciate the time. The contact information for us is on our website at DellBrookCapital.com. Thank you.
Think you understand the junior mining sector and you think that the participants in the mining sector, junior mining sector, are good people and kind people, hit the bid.
And the world is always going to need raw materials. It's going to need copper and gold and nickel and so forth.
Totally destabilized. Hey, Troll, did you hear what's going on in Yemen, or are you too stupid?